There is something I've been feeling more clearly lately that I didn't fully have words for before. I knew I was tired. I knew some days felt heavier than they should. I knew there were evenings where I sat down to focus on what I'm actually building, and it felt like I was trying to start with a half-empty tank. But I don't think I had named the real problem properly. The problem is not just that I'm working a job while trying to build something on the side. A lot of people do that. The problem is that both of those things need the same part of me. My mind, my focus, my care. Hi, I'm JP, and one of the hardest parts of this season is that the life paying for the present and the life I'm trying to build for the future are both asking for mental sharpness, and that creates a very specific kind of tension. Because by the time I finally get to the part of the day that matters most to me, I'm sometimes already mentally done. And when that happens, the build starts feeling heavier than it should. For a long time, I think I saw this mostly as a time problem. The day job takes hours. My own projects need hours. Trading needs time. Thinking needs time. Building needs time. And that is true. Time is part of the problem. But I'm realizing that time is not the deepest cost. The deeper cost is mental energy, because there is a difference between technically having time left in the day and having any real sharpness left to bring into that time. That's the hidden cost. You can finish the workday, look at the clock, and say, okay, now I have some time for what actually matters. But mentally, you may already be spent. Not lazy, not unwilling, spent. And that changes the quality of what the build receives from you. I think that's what makes this season so tricky. If my job was physically draining, but mentally light, that would be one thing. If my build needed almost no thought, that would be another thing. But that's not the situation. The job needs mental energy, it needs attention, it needs thought, it needs concentration, and the build needs those exact same things. Trading is not something I can do carelessly. Thinking about structure is not something I can do passively. Trying to refine anything meaningful is not something I can do half awake. So the tension is not just, I have two things to do. It's both of these things want the same version of me. And the truth is, the job gets first access. It gets the earlier hours, it gets the fresher mind. It gets the part of me that hasn't yet been worn down by the day. That's what makes split focus hard. Not just because the future is being built in the margins, but because the margins do not always get the best of your mind. There are days where I still show up for the build. That part matters. I'm not talking about just quitting for the evening every time I feel flat. I'm talking about something quieter. I show up, but I can feel that I'm arriving weaker than I should. Not weaker in commitment, weaker in presence, weaker in sharpness, weaker in care. That's the part that bothers me. Because the build still matters deeply to me. It still feels meaningful. It still feels connected to the life I'm trying to create. But when I arrive at it mentally done, even something meaningful can start to feel heavier than it should. Not because it is wrong, not because I'm losing belief in it, but because I'm trying to carry it with a mind that has already been spent somewhere else. And that changes the experience of the work. The same task feels heavier. The same process feels slower. The same focus feels harder to reach. If I'm being honest, that's where some resentment toward the job comes from. Not because work is inherently bad, not because responsibility is wrong, not because I expect life to be effortless. That's not it. The resentment comes from the fact that the wrong thing is consuming the part of me I most want to give somewhere else. That's what stings. The job is taking the care I wish I could bring to the build. It is taking the best part of my attention before I even get the chance to direct that attention toward what I actually want to be growing. And when you feel that over and over again, resentment makes sense. Not the kind of resentment that spills everywhere and poisons everything. More focused than that, more specific. Just the frustrating awareness that something necessary is using up energy I wish could go somewhere more aligned. This is where the whole thing becomes emotionally tricky, because the build itself hasn't become less meaningful. I still care. I still want it. I still believe in where this is going. But the build can start feeling heavier than it should, simply because I'm not bringing the right version of myself to it. That matters, because sometimes when something feels heavy, the instinct is to think something is wrong with the thing itself. Maybe I'm losing passion. Maybe I'm not cut out for it. Maybe the excitement is fading. But sometimes that's not the truth at all. Sometimes the thing still matters exactly as much as it always did. You're just trying to meet it with less left in the tank. And if you don't recognize that, you can misread the whole season. You can mistake exhaustion for misalignment. You can mistake mental depletion for loss of vision. And that would be a mistake. What makes this harder is that when I show up like that, I feel guilty. Not dramatic guilt, not shame spiraling, just that quiet sense that says, this deserves better than what I'm bringing right now. Because care matters. And when I can feel that the build is getting a reduced version of me, that bothers me. It bothers me because I know how much this matters. It bothers me because I know this is not just some hobby to pass time. It bothers me because the future I want is tied to this. So even though I'm still showing up, there are moments where I know I'm not showing up with the care the build deserves. And that's where the guilt lives. Not in not trying, but in knowing that trying and truly bringing your best are not always the same thing. I think that's what I'm learning now. This season requires better stewardship, not just of time, of mind, of attention, of care, because I cannot fully control the fact that the job requires mental energy. That's part of reality right now. But I do need to become more honest about the effect that has. I need to stop pretending that just because I am technically present for the build, I am automatically bringing enough to it. And I need to think more carefully about how to protect the part of me the future still needs. That might mean being more intentional in how I transition from one part of the day to the next. It might mean recognizing earlier when I'm mentally flat instead of just pushing through mindlessly. It might mean understanding that the battle in this season is not only about consistency, it is also about the quality of the presence I bring into that consistency. That's stewardship, not demanding a different reality before it's time, but handling the current reality more wisely. I think that's the line that keeps coming back to me. The build deserves more than leftovers. Not because every day needs to feel strong, not because I'm supposed to be at full intensity all the time. That's not realistic. But because what matters most should not always have to survive on the scraps of my mental energy. And I know that is part of what I need to keep learning in this season. How to still give real care to what matters, even when life keeps trying to take that care first. How to arrive more intentionally. How to notice when resentment is building. How to stop confusing mental exhaustion with a problem in the vision itself. And how to protect the inner quality of the work, not just the outer appearance of consistency. Because the danger is not only that the job takes hours, it is that it can quietly take the quality of my presence too, and that is too important to ignore. I think one of the hardest parts of building with split focus is that both lives need the same thing: thought, attention, care. And when the job gets there first, the build can start to feel heavier than it should. Not because it matters less, but because I'm sometimes arriving at it mentally done. That creates resentment toward the job, and it creates guilt toward the build. because I know what this future deserves from me. And in this season, part of the work is learning how to protect that better. Not just my time, my mind, my care, my presence. Because if I'm going to keep building something meaningful in the middle of ordinary life, then I need to become better at making sure the future does not keep getting what the present already used up. I'm JP, and I'll see you in the next one.